Welcome back to this week's webinar. I've got Deborah Carr from Anada and British Sauna Society with me. Thank you for joining me, Deborah.
Hi Sarah, nice to see you again. Thank you for inviting me.
Wow, well, we've had such great feedback from the last webinar. There were actually a few questions that came up. So I thought we'd maybe tackle a different part of the sauna industry. We would look at what we can do with our thermal areas if we haven't got a huge sauna, what other retail or revenue opportunities there are. So I've put together a few questions just to keep us on track so we don't waffle on as we joked earlier. So I thought I'd start with the first question. So Laurie from Hallcross Hall did a fab video on LinkedIn. She spoke there about how they offer Sauna Master as a value add rather than charging it for it, as they see that it enhances their membership and gives value. Last time we focused quite a lot on the ROI being that charging point. Are you seeing that spas aren't charging and actually doing it as a value experience that they're kind of adding onto their treatment menu?
Yeah, I actually am seeing that a little bit, particularly for the bigger sort of spas and properties. They're finding by adding rituals, it's a really good way, like you say, just to add on an additional value add. It's a great sort of tool to use and direction to point the guests in if they can't book additional treatments as well, which has been really successful. And also it's a really good way of kind of moving people around the spa on busy days as well, you know, moving them into the thermal areas. It frees up sort of sun lounges, hot tubs as well. So yeah, it's been really successful, not just from a revenue perspective as in a payable service, but from that value add as well.
Yeah, and I think you're right with that kind of moving your guests as well around. We always have limited lounges by the pool. If you can move that guest around, or members know that there's a key time for them to come in and have an Aufguss or use the sauna, it's that kind of movement of people around the facilities. The next sort of thing I was wanting to touch on is, how are we seeing with the change in demographics as well? Because obviously we're seeing that there's an increase of people looking at sauna as community. Younger people are swapping partying nights and doing DJs in saunas. Is that something that businesses should be focusing on? Is that something that's to stay? Or is that a trend in membership that we're seeing? Because obviously these are people who might be looking to join somewhere that has a membership that does include these sauna experiences.
Yeah, I really think this is a demographic that does get overlooked a little bit, but what I tend to say to people is these are the spa goers of tomorrow. So if they're used to, going to contrast bathing or saunas, and not, the pub like I did back in the day, then I think we should be mindful of that and really not overlook it and take that quite seriously. I think, the spa offering, if you look at the demographic typically of spa goers, it tends to be a little bit of an older demographic. So, we really need to remember that we need to, keep this flow of people coming in, not just in 2 months, but 2 years, 10 years down the road. So I do think it is here to stay, because what I'm seeing is more and more of these events pop up. We're seeing more and more contrast bathing properties and bathhouses opening, and their demographic is a much younger demographic. That you're looking at very much the early to mid-20s for that. And like I say, they are going to continue that demand really for the contrast, but also they're prepared to spend money. And why wouldn't we want that in the spas?
And are you seeing spas opening up bathing only membership? At the moment, when I've worked in membership before, it's been very much everything. Your gym, the thermal. Are spas, have they started to open up a contrast bathing membership, which is very much just that thermal area? Is that something you've started to see, or are we still a bit too early for that?
I think we're a little bit too early for that, but I've certainly seen, and I'm sure you have as well, Sarah, there is a much bigger demand now for kind of like wellness memberships. I see that more and more there, where I would say, your typical member back in the day, it was a gym membership, wasn't it, or a swim membership, where I think now we're starting to see a lot more of an offering where it's it's combining and really focusing on more of just that wellness rather than the fitness sort of chill out membership that people were after a little while ago. You know, we're seeing more and more with members being repeat customers for your sauna rituals and for your Avgos. But businesses where they have add-ons, you know, where sleep rituals, sound baths and things like that are part of their membership are really successful. And I think that's really helping with retention as well. And that sort of uniqueness that they're offering something different, which guests want.
I think, and you know, you really touched on a point. Last week, Stephanie Hall from David Lloyd's was talking about how they'd added in sauna and contrast bathing to David Lloyd on the idea that it would be about relaxation. And you touched on it there, that the view was always that spa was about relaxing and chilling out, but actually it's more now a recovery tool, isn't it? It is about wellness, recovery, less about I'm going to lie in a sauna for 3 minutes and then get out. It's a bit, there's more to it now. It's a tool. It's a tool in people's wellness kits, not just a nice to have.
For sure, and I think there is more and more education and understanding about the recovery benefits, like you say, particularly for people that are into the gym. You know, they're working out, they'll be very aware of their routines, how they're working out, what they're adding into that, and recovery in the sauna will definitely be now part of people's recovery and workout routines. So it seems, for me, pretty obvious that that would be the next step.
And then for people, so a lot of people have come to me afterwards and said, oh, I'm not sure I can do this. I haven't got the right sauna. My sauna isn't big enough. You know, we see your incredible images of people at Aufgaus competitions in like 30, 40 seater auditorium saunas. So we all have, I think, this mental image that we need a huge sauna to be able to deliver it. What size minimum sauna would you need to be able to do the kind of towel side of it? And what is there, if you haven't got a sauna big enough, what is there that you could do to make it more of an experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually, Sarah, and something that I get asked a lot is, I think there is, you're very right, there is a preconceived idea that it needs to be, you know, this big almost like event sauna, but yes, absolutely not. Some of the most beautiful rituals are done in very private settings. You know, saunas that can hold 2 people, you can offer beautiful rituals with them, all the way up to, you know, 300 people saunas like in Europe. The smaller saunas may offer some challenges with regards to sort of traditional Avgos, which is where we're concentrating on moving the air around with towels and things. But in the smaller saunas, there are so many other elements that you can bring in there that would enhance the experience for the guests, so they're getting the benefits from the heat. But you can introduce beautiful things like sound bathing, smoke rituals, infusions. You can look more towards the Baltic countries like Lithuania and Latvia and Russia, where they use a lot of leaves and branches. And quite often that's almost like one-to-one treatments. So it really opens up for all properties, from the, like I say, the very small to the very large. There is definitely something that can be done in all sizes, really.
And with this, if you wanted to put bring sound bowls in, or you know, that you talked about smoking in there, and like last time we spoke about the National Occupational Standard, how does that all work from like a training perspective? Can you simply take a sound bowl in and start doing that, would you suggest, or is there a training, or how does one start doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like everything. You've got to have the fundamentals of what you're doing. So I think starting with a Sauna Master education and qualification is the first port of call for anybody that's going to be delivering anything in a thermal environment. You know, we need, even in a small environment, if you're doing sound bowls or smoke rituals, you need to understand the environment that you're working in. You know, it's like, if you didn't have a massage qualification, you couldn't give somebody hot stones or, you know, bamboo to go and work with. They need to have that fundamental to work with. And I think one of the things about learning to be a sauna master is understanding how to work in different size saunas, which for me is one of the exciting things, and almost like fun challenges is to think about how you can deliver these rituals, what tools have you got, and how are you going to deliver them successfully in these different sized environments.
And so what is smoking? Because I'm sure there are other people sat here thinking, what's it? Well, because you're not actually smoking, are you?
No, it's a smoke ritual. So a smoke ritual is done by warming up natural and products, really. So resins is probably one of the most common thing to use. Or dried flowers or herbs or a mix of them. And what you do is you use like special bowls and charcoals and you warm the product up. So if I take a resin, for example, you warm it up to the point where it starts to sort of melt and solidify and it gives off a lovely smoke. A lot of people think that you're burning. You're not actually burning. If you were burning, it would smell like burning and it wouldn't be nice. There's a rich history to smoke rituals, particularly in thermal and sauna. You know, all the way back to sort of sweat bathing in South America, particularly use it a lot in Temescal. They use a lot of what they call smudging. People have heard of smudging. Very spiritual. Very ingrained in their culture. They use it a lot for cleansing the spirit, getting rid of negative things. So there's a lot of history to it, lots to learn, and it's super fun to do.
And then also we are seeing brands, product houses now step into the sauna ritual area. Obviously, we've seen that you've launched with Voya. How are brands doing this? What is that looking like from the kind of product perspective and the experience perspective? How are the brands incorporating their products into these rituals?
Yeah, I think it's starting by working with qualified sauna masters and not just, sort of taking a bowl of product in and just having a go. I think we've got to be quite mindful of what we are doing in there. But a lot of these product brands, and particularly working with Voya, there was a lot of natural, authentic elements in there, which is very key again for the sauna. And it's taken them to enhance the experience. So by using these products in there, we can enhance the journey. It can be more immersive for the guests. But it also opens up retail opportunities as well, because the guests are actually getting their hands on these products. They're using them on their face, their hair, their body, they're smelling them or tasting them, even if it's teas and things that we're offering before or after the rituals. So it's a really good way of introducing guests to the products without the guests being in the treatment room.
So sort of give me an example. So there's face products that you can use and go in as part of it, or is it using the oils in the scents and essence in the ice? How is that? I'm super interested. I need to go and have this treatment, but obviously if I can't have the experience today, I can't do it now. But how is that crossover happening? How is the retail being used in the experience?
So I'll use steam actually as a really good example. So steam rituals, again, traditionally very spiritual, very cleansing. So for me, the idea is that we're working with a natural or as natural a product as we can work with, because obviously we're heating the product up and it's a wellness experience. So we don't want to be working with a lot of chemicals or synthetics in there. But what we can do is create, like I say, as an experience. So if I take the Voya experience that we've created, for example, we've taken that natural organic seaweed and we've bagged it up into tiny little bags that the clients can use in their own body. So they're using organic natural seaweed that they rub onto the body, onto the skin, so they get these amazing alginates, it exfoliates, so they're getting a moisturising and an exfoliation treatment in one, and then they also get that little bag of seaweed to take home with them. So that's part of the cost. They get that to take away, then they can use that in the bath or however they want to use it. We give them some advice on it. And then when they're finished using it, they can put that seaweed in the garden. So it's very sustainable sort of way of doing it, as well as it being a really nice immersive experience for the guests.
That's so cool. I hadn't even anticipated you were going to say about using a bag of seaweed. That is incredible. I love it. I think it's so cool to hear brands being innovative like that and saying, we want to move out of the treatment room. We recognise that there aren't always lots of therapists. We've got to look at experiences outside of the treatment room. I think that's so key to how the industry can be better supported by brands. And again, like you say, it opens up a retail opportunity, which touches nicely onto one of the other questions. If you aren't charging for a Sauna Master experience, how do you make revenue? And I think you've kind of linked in there, obviously, with the retail side of it. But you were telling me, like, there's obviously F&B opportunities, and even the little hats that people wear, like getting branded. Are they called a sauna hat? Am I right?
That's exactly what they are, yes. So sauna hats, I should have had one here for me to show you. So they work very much the opposite of what a woolly hat would work. When we go outside in the winter, we want to keep our heads warm. When we're in the sauna, people often want to keep their heads cool. So it helps them with the heat. But if you've got long hair, it also helps protect your hair from heat as well. But a lot of businesses will use these as merchandise. So they'll get them all branded or coloured to match the brand or the signature of their businesses, and then guests can buy them. So that's really cool. And then again, like you say, the F&B is massive. It was really interesting. I was just talking to a business yesterday, and they have seen an increase since they started Rituals 4 months ago of 32% on their F&B. 32%, because what's happening is everybody that's coming out of the ritual all of a sudden are like, let's go and have a drink, we're thirsty. So they're going and going for drinks. So again, that's another way of moving people around, because they're coming out of the sauna and then they're heading over to, to the bar or the cafe or whatever to buy a drink or a snack. Because sauna makes you hungry, it makes you thirsty and hungry. So if you guide your guests in the right direction, then it makes a huge impact.
32% increase on F&B since they've fitted sauna Rituals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I mean, I thought maybe a something here or a something there, but that's a considerable increase. That's not small spend. Wow. And I guess, like you say, there's your hats, your F&B, the retail. Like, there's a real opportunity there to actually, if you say, I want to give this as a free experience, as Laurie was saying in the video she made, actually you can open up other revenue streams by depending on what you put in, like the bags of seaweed and stuff, and teas, flavoured teas, I imagine would be quite a good one as well. So it's really interesting. And then the therapist side of it, we touched on it again a second ago when you were talking through the voyeur treatment. It's all about making money, I get that, and it's all about looking at how we can bring guests out of the treatment room. But actually, how can we use it? Are people seeing it as a value tool for their team development and retention as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think because it's something new, it shows that these businesses are kind of pioneers in these thermal therapies at the moment, because it's still, like I say, it's still quite new in the UK. So for businesses and properties to invest in their team members and staff to do this training and development, I think it shows a lot of forward thinking, and it makes people feel valued, I think, in those businesses. And also it's a really good way, even for the properties, to bring in, their teams to the sauna and steam room. Not only does it help with kind of team building, it's a bit of education. Because it's nice to get your marketing team, your reception, your front of house in to experience these treatments, so that they can talk to the guests about them. They've experienced it, they know how it feels, how they feel afterwards. But let's not forget that a happy and healthy workforce, you're going to have less sick days, you're going to have less people leaving. So there's just the benefits of asking your staff or encouraging your staff to use these facilities is a benefit in itself.
Yeah, that is something I could go on about, actually, because I think that quite often spas don't open themselves up to letting their teams use the facilities enough. I think it's a very much a total difference of them and us, isn't it? And actually, you're right. If you had designated evening times or, you know, early morning slots where you're perhaps a little bit quieter, and you do encourage your teams to use your facilities, there's a massive health benefit from that. You know, not only from, you know, the developing the person and giving them an opportunity to learn something new, but also like to experience something. You know, we should be encouraging that hands-on wellness. You know, I bang on about this. We work in wellness, but are we a well industry? We're not. You know, we should be doing a lot more to be well. It was interesting that I heard Phil from Hawcross Hall talk the other day about selecting the right team members. He was saying how they very much made sure that when they were setting up, I go back to Hawcross Hall because it's a great case study for it, but they went back and they made sure that they selected the right people to go on the training. Is there anything you're seeing as like a common characteristic that you would look for someone? You know, obviously they're in the heat for a long time, you know, the resilience to being in those hot temperatures. Is there something that you would say people should look for when they're selecting their first team members to take part in Sauna Master training?
I would say anybody that's got a genuine interest or passion about well-being will be interested in this, because once they start to realise the benefits that they're receiving, but they're giving to their guests as well, that's kind of the first hook into it. And anybody that's got any experience holding space, so, you know, like fitness instructors, yoga instructors, anything like that, anybody that's, you know, used to guiding people, that's always a good thing. And they're always, those type of people or team members I usually see are very engaged in this, and quite confident with it as well. But we often see anybody that's got any performance background as well, you know, anybody that's done any dance, any theatre, anything like that, love this, because there is that creativity, that performance element that they can bring into it, because there is a lot of creativity with it as well. So it's quite a fun outlet if that's something that that you're passionate about.
Yeah, I love that you would get someone who is creative, who just wants to get out there and do and perform and do some singing or some movement and things. Deborah, thank you so much. This will obviously be going out before our event in May in Manchester, because I am super keen for people to explore more of this side, you know, whether it is the full Aufgaus or it is including the sound bowls or incorporating a product house in. I think there's loads that we can do within the sauna area. You'll obviously be there in May, and I'm sure if people had any questions, you'll have the space and hopefully the time between delivering these amazing experiences for everyone, that they can come and speak with you as well. You'll be there and sort of there to answer any questions as well, won't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's part of it, isn't it? It's that, people will have questions and they'll be curious, and it's nice to get the feedback from people, particularly if they've never done it before. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have some people who have never had it before, and we can see what they think of the experience and let us know. But thank you so much for joining me again. I think as more and more questions come and we look to support people in going into this part of the industry, I think it's good to be able to answer questions as they come, and then everyone can hear the answers.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.